Good morning and welcome to CLIC Live. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan. I'd like to thank our production partner for this show, Red Roof Franchising. They're making this show possible, and we've got a very special program for you today. And one of our favorite commercial real estate brokers, he is the regional president for Southern California and Arizona with Kidder Mathews, and he's also the current chapter president of NAIOP SoCal. We are going to be talking about real estate taxes, all asset classes, including residential. So what do you think about that? We're also going to talk about the ULA mansion tax in the city of Los Angeles and the Taxpayer Protection Act. If you're doing business in real estate in California, this is something that you're going to want to hear. This is going to affect all of us. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Eric Paulsen. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Craig?
Great. It's good to see you. Yeah, I'm so vain, I forgot to take my glasses off earlier.
That's right. I'll just do this to make you feel better.
There we go. So, hey, thank you so much for making time for this, Eric.
Of course.
And for the audience, we've got a 2 episodes posted to the California Lodging Investment Conference YouTube channel where we started this discussion. There's been some changes, so I thought it would be an opportune time to get Eric back into the studio and do a live show. And if you guys are wanting to ask us questions, we'll be able to bring those up on the screen as well and hopefully answer those. So, Eric, real estate taxes.
Oh, yeah. Let's just go taxes in general.
Well, we'd be here for at least the next 48 hours if we did that. So
that is true.
But with the real estate taxes, I mean, we've typically had some of the best real estate taxes in the nation. Proposition 13 has helped us out dramatically.
Yep.
Now, that my belief is part of the problem is you need the tax collector and the assessors to do their jobs. I don't know how much money is sitting in the unsecured rolls when, they missed an ownership and the second owner in or third owner in said, hey, wait a minute, that's not mine. And they've had to remove that. But could you give an overview of our real estate taxes for the audience, please?
Sure. Very, very easily. It's Prop 13. That was passed back in the 70s. The idea was as values of California real estate were increasing, it was becoming untenable for people to be able to pay their taxes if the values went up so high. So Prop 13 came in. It kind of froze with an increase. So if you bought something at $1 million, you paid taxes on $1 million, and then it had a CPI increase from there. If you turn around and sold it 10 years later at a loss for, say, $500,000, your taxes reset at that $500,000 and then increased via CPI from there. If you paid $1.5 million, then it went up to $1.5 million. So it allowed for a very easy way to underwrite California real estate. You knew what your taxes were going to be. In multiple other states, you have assessors come in saying, I think it's this. So Prop 13 has been around for 50 years, but it is now actually starting to get under challenge by our legislation that would like to have it eliminated so that you could reassess values basically per an assessor's office and increase potential as the thought is that it would increase taxes. The good news is you are always allowed to, if you want to appeal the value that's been placed on yours. So if you bought it for $1 million and the market craters and it's now only worth $700,000, you can go in and appeal. There are groups that help you do that. Our appraisers can help you do that. But yeah, right now it's in place. I know my parents, if it went to current value, would get kicked out of their house. So it's of concern to them. But right now, some of the legislation that's coming out is starting the attack on that. It's been going on now for the last 2 or 3 election cycles. But this one's a little more serious. That's kind of where we are right now. It's determined by your sales price, not necessarily by an assessment, and you can appeal it. And it does go up by CPI. So that's kind of your generics of that one.
Thank you, Eric. Now, also, correct me if I'm wrong, when a county comes in and reassesses, there's a cap on that at 2%, correct?
Yeah, and they don't reassess. It's based on the sale. right? Or some type of a transaction that transfers the ownership of it. So yeah, it's not like they come in on any given Thursday and say, we've decided your property is worth X.
X.
Yeah, it has to have some type of an event that makes that trigger.
Now, that event, besides a sale, could be a construction loan and
yeah, if you're
type
doing
of thing.
something different to the property, you're doing a significant change to that property. You're transforming the use. But no, going off and getting a loan on the property wouldn't trigger that. Yeah. It's really all about if you're changing and adding. If you scrape the house and rebuild it, that's going to be retaxed.
Yeah, or the commercial asset, that's all going to affect your taxes.
That's correct.
So the city of Los Angeles, and this is sarcasm, in their infinite wisdom, enacted ULA, or the mansion tax. Yep. And I'm guessing that when the mansion tax nickname got hung on it, that was the purpose for homes at $5 million or more. But that's also found its way into commercial real estate. And we've been dealing this for a year now. So what's this past year been like dealing with the city of Los Angeles and the mansion tax?
Sure. So it really is going to depend on who you talk to. The supporters are going to say it's a phenomenal success. And those who are the detractors are going to say it's crushing everything in life that we are aware of. So let's give it some success. Let's cover both sides. So the success. Yeah. So it was implemented about a year ago, back in April, and it was anything that sells for $5 million or between $5 million and $10 million is going to get taxed at 4%, and then anything greater than $10 million is going to get taxed at 5% or 5.5%. Excuse me. So what you had was it's coming in April. It's coming in, say, June. Everybody and their mother, when they were ready to sell, sold as quickly as possible into June. And then after that, it was a shutdown, and people only necessarily sold if they were needing to, if there's some reason to it, something along those lines. So the concern that you've got right now is that in June 30th, there's a change that's coming to it. It's not so much a scary change for me. Basically, what they're doing is they're just changing the threshold. So they inflated the threshold. So it's now 5.15 million is at 4%. And 10.3 million is at the 5.5%. So they've increased the threshold. It's not like they increased the interest rate. So talking about the success, it raised $215 million. That was $215 million they did not have before. And so they turn around and say, look, we just got $215 million. Let's put this in place. Now let's get into the detractors. The detractors are saying, yeah, you thought it was going to get you $900 million. You've cratered transactions to the tune of about 70% less volume. When you transact, we talked about Prop 13. So if I was to sell something at $5 million, my taxes are going to be at $5 million. If I've owned it for 30 years at $2 million, my taxes are still at $2 million plus whatever inflation went up. You just lost out on a $5 million sale because I'm now not going to sell unless I absolutely have to. So your taxes are still at $2 million city. And then the transaction volume with this coming in place, you have people that are redlining Los Angeles. They're just saying, I'm just not going to invest there. So you're seeing a lack of investment into that market. So the detractors are saying you've shut down the market. The proponents are saying we raised $215 million we didn't have before. So you can see the pros and cons. Now, where I am and my position on all of this is that apathy has costed commercial real estate billions. And I put something on LinkedIn. I did an article on LinkedIn to that effect. This bill was passed without anybody knowing about it, really, or objecting to it, or thinking, it'll never happen. Right. And so you had a chance to go in and say, this is a bad idea, and you did it. So my real concern is that we as consumers are allowing a lot of this legislation to come into place without our voice being heard, and it's now impacting us a little bit more negatively than we would have wanted. So I mentioned that $250 million that was raised. We really don't know what's going on with that $215 million. They'll say, hey, we put $200 million over towards this. We've put in $28 million towards the distressed tenants and landlords. We put in $23 million towards building stuff and outreach, $56.8 million on loans to accelerate development. But a lot of it was we just gave cash to people to help them pay the rent. And that's kind of wealth distribution, redistribution, if you will. Or, is that really what you wanted your dollars to do? Did you want it to go towards building housing, which is a shortfall, or did you want me to hand it to somebody so they could pay their rent? Right. So you're starting to get a lot of, wait a minute, what's going on with the money that's being raised? But yeah, I'm going to bring it all back to, hey, it's your own damn fault. You didn't let the people know that you had a problem with it. It got passed, and now you get to deal with it.
Exactly. And I agree with you on all those points, Eric. And, let's take it a step farther. As far as I know, on the hotel side, we've only had 2 hotels change hands in this time frame. And both of them were exempt because they went to be converted into homeless shelters. Yep. How has it affected various asset classes? I mean, we all know about the problems with the Class A office buildings.
Sure.
And you and I have this conversation all the time, how people get in there and they want to convert these things to residential units. And it probably isn't going to work. It's probably going to be way too expensive. Yeah. But what are you seeing? I mean, this sounds like a great disruptor to me. Okay. Now, retail centers, strip malls, Class A offices, light industrial. Is all this stuff basically grinded to a halt, or some asset classes just saying, hey, we're going to move forward? Because you did mention the redlining.
Sure. So I would say grinding to a halt. If 70% reduction in transactions is a grind, sure. But there's been a significant lack of transactions that are taking place. You're also seeing, when you mentioned the downtown office building sales, you are seeing those being sold under distress. But what's fascinating to me is that a transfer of ownership, this is a transfer tax. This isn't just a property tax and you're putting it on your property tax bill. This is, hey, I'm trading it. Eric is selling it to Craig. That's a transfer. However, if Eric loses it back to name that bank, Bank of LA, Bank of LA is that's a transaction too, and that tax is applying. So if they foreclose on me, they're going to get hit with that transfer tax, and I guarantee you nobody's underwritten that in any of their loans. And so now when you go to a loan, you have to put that as a conservative basis. Could this happen? You're getting less loan value. So there's a lot of cause and effect. I mean, let me put it back up. I think our legislation is trying to do it for the right reasons. Right? They're trying to solve something for the right reason, but they're not taking it the second and third step and doing the effect of what that's going to do and really where it's going to impact things. But think about a city. And I tried to do something in a city, and they said, look, I appreciate it. You're right. That's a great idea. For the next 5 years, that's going to be fantastic. But as a city person, I'm looking 30 years down the road. So what is it going to look like in 30 years? So they may turn around. So they, being the legislation on this transfer tax, may turn around and say, hey, we raised $215 million we didn't have before, but I'm pretty sure somewhere down the road you're going to have to transfer. I got 30 years to wait you out. So they're not in any rush to change this or take immediate criticism because they've got a longer horizon than most of us. So I think that's where that is going to hit, is they're going to turn around and say, that's all well and good. That's the new rule. Deal with it. Now, where that could get repealed, and this is why there's a lot of drama going on in Sacramento and in California, is that the Taxpayer Protection Act has qualified for the ballot.
Right.
That's taking place in November. And what that says is you have to have a 2/3 vote to get any tax or transfer tax, any fee, if you will, approved by 2/3 of the voter. And it goes backwards. It's actually going to go back and potentially recapture this ULA mansion tax and eliminate it because it was passed with a 50+1. So you can see where there's some pushback on this Taxpayer Protection Act. And we can talk about these naming rights that are going on right now. The proponents are Taxpayer Protection Act. The opponents are Taxpayer Deception Act, which I think is kind of a clever counter, if you will.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see who is for more taxes, and it's usually the folks that rely on or get a lot of their funding from the government, nonprofits, union labor for highways, freeways, taxes, all that kind of stuff. City leagues of California, counties are all saying, look, this is our piggy bank. Don't go after our piggy bank. You're removing our rights. So you're starting to see a lot of pushback for us. But the ULA mansion tax is in jeopardy, if you will, on the November ballot, and it could get repealed there. If it doesn't, and the Taxpayer Protection Act doesn't go forward, then most of our jurisdictions can tax us, fee us, whatever you want to call it, at a 50+1. So there's a lot going on, and this is why I wrote this apathy is you need to get involved. All our politicians today, their major concern, it's a career now. It's not, except for a term limit. You just go relocate, but it's a career. So it's about getting elected or reelected. And how do I get reelected or elected? I get the most votes. So I've sat in our politicians' offices, and you listen to the receptionist listening to the voicemail, 1 for, 1 against, 1 for. Okay, we have 50 against and 1 for, so our position should be 50 votes to 1. We should be for it. So by not emailing, by not calling your congressman, your senator, your city council member, they're not hearing your voice, and they're determining who's the loudest and the most people likely to vote. So think about it. If I have 200 tenants and 1 landlord, and 200 tenants call and say, I want rent control, and 1 landlord doesn't call at all and or calls, that's 200 to 1. I'm for rent control. Yeah. So unless you're making your voice heard, politicians with the best interest in mind of their constituents and whomever it is are making decisions on who is saying and talking and putting in the most number of people saying vote for or against this. So that's my, if you will, my ask is really just get engaged. There's a lot going on out there. Do your homework on your politicians. You've elected social democrats, or you've elected far right or far left, whatever it is, by not casting a vote or by not getting involved. And now you're complaining when they come up with the ULA mansion tax. Well, you lost your chance. You're whining after not doing anything. You know, I dropped my ice cream. Aw. Well, you should have been licking faster.
There you go. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, it's democracy just doesn't happen. You have to work at it. You have to get involved. Yeah. Everybody's guilty of going, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm too busy, I'll just donate. It's more than that. And you make some very good points here, Eric, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
What next, Greg? You just stumped the band with that. Taxpayer Protection Act.
Yes.
Dates, timing, updates. What do you have on that? And then I want to follow that up with the Supreme Court has heard the oral arguments.
Yeah, exactly. So the Taxpayer Protection Act was put in front of citizens who could sign off, and it qualified for the ballot with a couple million signatures. So it's on the ballot. Now, there's a couple things that could happen to derail that. One is it has not been named yet by the state attorney general, Bonta, who has the onus or job of naming these measures. So he could come out and call it whatever he wants. And then if you fight it, the judge has to determine whether it was truthful, sincere, describes what it was. And here's my fantastic example of that. You can be for or against this. I'm not saying either side. But a bill started as the Protect Kids of California Act. And the gist behind that was about transitioning children. You shouldn't do it under the age of 18. You got to tell their parents. You can't keep it from the parents. And so that was how they proposed it. And it got enough signatures under that to make the ballot. Bonta's renaming that to Restricts Rights of Transgender Youth. So if you don't do your homework or you don't look into it and you just look at the title, which is very important per polling, you basically just said, well, I'm not going to restrict the rights of transgender. That doesn't sound correct. But if you read it, you can then determine what the gist of it was. Like I'm saying, for or against, I'm not saying anything, but the naming convention. So right now it's called the Taxpayer Protection Act and Government Accountability. Its proponents are calling it the Taxpayer Deception Act. Monta could call it whatever it wants. So do your homework on what that is. Minor digression down the little rabbit hole. Sorry, Craig, you know I can't help myself. But the timing on everything, it has qualified for the ballot. Yeah. Several politicians, Ward, Democrat from San Diego, came up with ACA 13. That basically is the counter to that, saying you can't, you don't have to go to the same 2/3. You can do it at 50%. You've got a couple of others that are out there that are repealing constitutional provisions that requiring voter approval for low rent housing, et cetera, et cetera. But timing on the TPA. So May 8th, backing up a little bit, who's against this? Governor Newsom is the plaintiff in this case, and the defendant is the Secretary of State who's supposed to put this on the ballot or not. So Governor Newsom, along with a concerned citizen. Now, the concerned citizen is John Burton, who's the 92-year-old career politician out of San Francisco that used to be a head of and the chairman and president of the Democratic Party in California, is the concerned citizen. So they're suing to get this removed off the ballot, saying it's not constitutional, it's not this, it's not that. Actually, it's a tough argument because it's our constitutional right as citizens to be able to put something on the ballot to defend against our politicians. So May 8th, they had oral arguments presented to the California Supreme Court, and they are going to have to decide or not before June 27th. So we got 22 more days?
Yep.
As the deadline for the Secretary of State to certify things to go on the ballot. So the Supreme Court is most likely going to either not opine, in other words, saying, you know what, we're just going to let this go forward, or they're going to opine for or against, and the Secretary of State will then be allowed to put it on the ballot. That's when the fireworks are going to start, because that's when all of the money gets spent. That's when all of the advertisement is. Right now, they're saying, like the California State Association of Counties, this is one of my favorites. It's amending the Constitution to restrict the ability of states and counties and other agencies and their electorate to approve or collect taxes. Basically saying it's 2/3 vote. So it's really not going to kind of do that. It's restricting fees by local authorities. It's not restricting. It's basically saying you got to go get approval before you can allow that. So you're going to start seeing things. The cities, the unions, they're all that are saying it is a wealthy corporation that's trying to put this in place to protect themselves. It's not for the little man. The little man should be against this. So there's going to be a lot. I mean, the television ads are going to be crazy. So just, again, the apathy, do your homework, look into it, read the print. It'll probably be a step. Ask somebody. By the way, if anybody in your audience, Craig, wants to know more about it, I'm just flashing this. NAIOP does legislative affairs and sends things out. I'm happy to, if people want to reach out to me, send them anything on positions that the real estate community or NAIOP are for or against, just to be aware of. I'm happy to do that. But yes, there's a lot of taxes that are going out right now. Los Angeles right now, the county of LA is trying to do a 0.5-cent sales tax. There's qualified by voter ballot measures. There's qualified by legislator. There's a wealth tax coming out there right now that's been qualified for voters. There's a minimum wage increase that's going on. There's repeals to the Private Attorneys General Act. There's local special taxes. There's referendums challenging new oils and gas. There's someone trying to repeal Costa-Hawkins. To me, it's always look at who's the sponsor of that. And when you look at who's the sponsor of it and or look who's the proponent of it, put yourself in their shoes and say, why are they against that? Oh, because that's their money. That's where they make money. Or they're against this because it'll impact their abilities to do certain things. And if you're for or against that group, you can kind of understand why they're fighting this. Nobody just goes out there and says, I'm against that because they're against it.
Right.
There usually is a reason behind it. So the ask is just do a little bit of homework. And if it's confusing, ask somebody that knows. So that's kind of been my latest push is if you're against something, call your politician, reach out. Obviously, there's groups raising money to go fight this and do ads. It's about the education. I hate writing checks, to be honest with you. So I'm more than happy to send an email or leave a voicemail or tell a couple other people, hey, you probably should think this. But if your heart's in it to write a check, go for it. But at a minimum, just make a phone call. It's a voicemail. You're not going to have to talk to them. You're not going to explain yourself. Hey, this is Eric Paulsen. I'm a resident of your district, and I want you to vote no for that.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah. It really is. And, Eric, thank you for cutting through the noise and giving everybody the ability and how to look at these things and for them to make their own decisions instead of somebody else. But again, it comes back to you've got to get involved. You have to be involved with these scenarios. Yeah. Now, I also want to touch on you as NAIOP SoCal recently had a victory. We'll touch on that in a moment. How are you underwriting deals now with this? Because that's, everybody's looking at every nickel right now.
Sure.
Interest rates are higher. You've got lending requirements that are tighter than they've been in a long, long time. Yep. CapEx funds are being held at higher rates. So how are you trying to underwrite something right now in today's market with all of this going on? And let's just pick on the city of Los Angeles. And if most of you people don't know, it's a huge amount of land and a huge population. It is like 2/3 of the San Fernando Valley. It's not just downtown and the Wilshire corridor and a few other places.
Yeah. It also includes the ports. So it's the ports, a little barbell leading out to all this, and it's massive. Yeah. Massive. Yeah. North Hollywood, Panorama, Pacoima. You're right.
By population, city of Los Angeles, second largest in the nation. So, and I did some research on that last night because I was also thinking that it was going to be right up there with landmass as well, but didn't quite make that one. But it is a huge part of LA County. And, everything is being affected by this. Residential sales over $5 million. Retail, office, hospitality, light industrial, multifamily. The list goes on. And you are going to pay higher prices if this stuff comes through. Yeah. So, again, Eric, how do you underwrite right now?
Yeah. So I'm going to back up 1 second, then tell you how I'm underwriting. But what most folks don't realize is when we say, let's screw the wealthy, let's screw the property owned, these wealthy corporations that own real estate, let's go after this business or that business. Anything that raises the cost on that owner or that tenant, like minimum wage or anything along those lines, that gets trickled down through the supply chain to us, the consumer on the bottom. So they'll eat some of it, but at the end of the day, as you charge extra on your industrial that stores the coffee beans, that grinds the coffee beans, that packages the coffee beans, that delivers them to the distribution, that delivers them to the store, tax, your cup of coffee is now $10 instead of $5. And we're to blame because we went after the owner of the wealthy corporation, that sort of thing. So yes, everything impacts all of us, and that's why we should all be engaged in this. Now, underwriting, there's a lot of things that have been happening that are creating all kinds of issues for commercial real estate. I'm going to spell it WAIRE. WAIRE program is a ruling against or a fee, a mitigation for our climate warriors against the carbonization that's produced by our industrial buildings. So an industrial building has to mitigate carbon. And so you put in solar panels, you put in EV chargers. But the problem is, at the end of the day, you will never be able to get your building to a level that qualifies for zero and not writing a fee or mitigation check. So basically, it's a money grab. They have gone after the industrial buildings and said, if you don't do this, this, and this, we're going to charge you to mitigate. It doesn't solve anything. It's just a fee. And so these owners of buildings are having to write checks. Now, if I'm writing a check, I'm passing that on to my tenant, who in turn is passing it on to you, the consumer. So you need to figure out where and how important that is to you if you're willing to pay $10 for the coffee instead of $5, which is fine. I mean, if that's of value to you. All these gas sales tax, we voted on ourselves saying, yeah, we do want our roads improved. So, hey, if that's what you're for, great. But if I'm underwriting my real estate and I have a decision to make, so I'm bringing my goods into the Port of Los Angeles, I'm then shipping my goods to my warehouse in the Inland Empire, and then I'm distributing from there, I have to decide, is it worth the money? Or should I just continue my truck to drive all the way through the state of California to Arizona or Nevada, where I don't have indirect source rules, legislation against me? So as an underwriter, I'm looking at who is going to be next in my building and what rents will they be able to pay, given all of the costs, my CAM charges, my common area maintenance charges that I'm passing along to the tenant. Am I going to be able to keep the existing tenant, or do I have to, if I find a new one, will I be able to charge the same rates? And what we're seeing on the industrial side, and I'm picking on industrial because that has been the golden child. We've seen very high rental growth, supply demand in favor of the landlords on the industrial side, where a tenant that had a lease 5-10 years ago was paying 75 cents. They're now paying $1.50. So they have to make a decision. Can I afford the $1.50, or do I have to reduce my square footage, fire some employees, move out of state? Those are decisions that, as the owner, I'm trying to decide, can I keep a tenant or can I keep my building profitable? So in underwriting, I'm underwriting, unfortunately, a little bit more conservatively. I realize that my expenses are going up. Believe it or not, it's not the property taxes that are the biggest expense. It's not the legislation that's coming in that makes me the most nervous. It's insurance. Insurance has gone up by 300% on some of these buildings. You were paying 10 cents a foot. You're now paying 75 cents a foot if you can get it. So there's a lot of other issues that are impacting my underwriting that I'm looking at in my expenses to the building. And so staying on top of what's going on with all of your expenses. My company, my little quick plug, I've got a property management group that'll audit expenses. And we're finding that insurance is probably the number one, and then labor is number two. We're seeing significant increases in that with minimum wage and with the insurance market right now, kind of redlining California, or just making it so expensive that it's tough to get, with insurers looking for excuses to get out of California. So my underwriting is conservative right now. I'm not anticipating rent growth for industrial. I'm going to probably anticipate maybe a CPI level. I'm looking at my increased expenses. On my retail side of things, retail never really got into a crazy town with cap rates. Retail is still good, but the minimum wage is coming in and creating all kinds of issues for my smaller service providers, my pizza, my nails. You're starting to see the sit-down restaurants are starting to disappear. Red Lobster making some announcements there. I think you're going to see more, unfortunately. So our rules and restrictions, our labor laws, are things like that are going to impact retail. So I'm looking at my ability to retain tenants, plus my insurance. On the office side, office is depending upon what you are, people are going to Class A trophies. I think you're seeing B's and C's struggle a little bit depending upon your market. We've been picking on Los Angeles. Let's keep doing that just because we already started. Let's continue getting that.
Absolutely.
Email. Let's continue getting it. Downtown LA, kind of no reason to be there. You're now moving to Century City. You're a little concerned about the socioeconomics, the safety, getting in and out of it, the cost of parking. Meanwhile, Century City is crushing it. Downtown LA, you're getting $2 rents, $3 rents, and hoping for tenants. Century City, you're in $6 range. So, and people are paying that to be there. So it's not the rent per se that's being the determinant. Like, remember the .com that we had going on in San Francisco, everybody had to move to Oakland because rents were too high.
Right.
Now people are moving to Century City because it's a better environment for their tenants or for their employees than it is for downtown LA. So it's not so much the rent as it is the amenities, the safety, my nearby socioeconomics, traveling time in and out, parking costs. I'm looking at it from the employee's perspective of I got to do what's best for my employees.
Right.
And I'm willing to pay rent to do that. So office, industrial, retail, multifamily, there's just concern because you're getting a lot of rent control measures. You're getting a lot of evictions. There's some stuff on the ballot right now that are protecting tenants to the detriment of owners and the ability to reinvest in your real estate. So I think we don't want people to get evicted for the wrong reasons, but you want to be able to evict people that aren't paying the rent, and you want to be able to add value to your real estate and improve it and try and get more value in your real estate. Again, better taxes. So I think multifamily struggling right now, just given the rules and regulations that are coming in on what you can do with your tenants and what you can do with your real estate. It's just a lot of government control causing issues for the property owners that are making them cautious as to what they do and can do. So that impacts, that's the cause and effect. Like I said, going for the right reasons, but there's a lot of cause and effect that tie into things. And so you just wish that before they put the laws in place, there was more done to understand steps 2, 3, and 4 than just saying, we're going to solve this by doing this. And then we'll let the chips fall where they may. And again, that comes back down to not getting involved in the first part, not having a relationship with your politician, not having your voice heard. So whether you're for or against, you don't have to be on either side of the other, but it goes both ways. And right now, we're having decisions made with 10% of the electorate voting. That means 90% of the people are going to be bitching and moaning in about December about how things went. But the 10% were active. The 90%, you have no right to bitch and moan. You gave up your right by not getting involved.
Yeah. If you're not participating, you've got no right to bitch. And I agree with you. And it's actually 5 months from today is election day. So you've got 5 months to do your homework, do your due diligence.
Yeah. And you've got a month to reach out to your politicians to get things on the ballot or off the ballot. So you've got really till June 27th in California to make your voices heard. And it doesn't take much. It's really pretty straightforward.
Absolutely. Now, to continue on our picking on the city of Los Angeles, a long time ago, I had an office in Woodland Hills, which is in the city of Los Angeles. And our professional license for being able to do business in the city of LA was $150,000 a year. Okay. And again, this is a long time ago. So I'm sure that rate has gone up dramatically.
Sure.
Now, our office was dated, old. I was living either in Toluca Lake or La Cañada Flint Ridge, which are not part of the city of Los Angeles. So, and a lot of financial groups were moving to Glendale at the time. So we wanted to move to Glendale as well. And it was funny because my license fee for the city of Los Angeles was $150,000. My license for Glendale was $500. Okay. You know what I did with that other $149,500?
Heck of a party.
No, I bought new office furniture. We were up on the 16th floor of a nice, beautiful, brand new building. So, it's interesting, but
I like what you said. Sorry to interrupt, but what I like what you said was you didn't just stick the money in the bank. So who do you want spending the money?
Yeah.
Do you want yourself spending the money, or do you want some governing body where you don't know what that's going to? So that 150, you have no idea where it really went.
Yeah.
But the 104 exactly where that went. And you put it back into the economy through furniture and through rent and through being able to hire more employees. So that's a decision you're going to have to make.
Win-win scenario.
Yeah.
My friend, let's talk about NAIOP SoCal. You guys have been very active. You sponsored a bill recently, as I recall, and it made it through at least part of the legislative body the last time we talked.
Yep. We are, probably 80% of the way home. So it's not time to declare victory. And it's technically it's a small victory, but so NAIOP SoCal, we're 1,300 members. We're the second largest chapter of NAIOP, which is a national organization. I like to joke that we're behind a state ahead of a country because we're behind the state of Massachusetts.
That was good.
Ahead of Canada. Thank you. And so what we've been doing always is defense. So we hear about a bill coming out and we say, hey, that's not necessarily a good idea. We work with California Business Property Association, which is up in Sacramento. We work with our locals and say, hey, this doesn't sound great. So we've always been on defense, and you got to eventually be on offense. And so I've been on in the executive suite, if you will, for 4 years. I'm the president this year. I'll be past president next year, so I'll still be engaged. But I've always said, can we just go on offense once, whether it be supporting a particular politician that supports business, whether it be opposing, not just opposing bill, but promoting one. So we proposed a bill. And what it says is that if you go to get your entitlements and your permits for a city, the city has 30 days, which is enough time, we think, to be able to solve the problem, whether to get your entitlements back or get your permit to you.
Right.
If it goes beyond 30 days, then you have the right to pay for, I pay for it, not the city, a third party person that is familiar with how the city operates to approve and or opine on and review it. So it's sponsored by a local politician with Kirk Stilla, who we definitely appreciate being willing to step into the fray with us. It has gone through every committee with an undefeated vote, so 14 zeros. It went through the assembly with a bipartisan approval, and it is now to the Senate.
Nice.
And we thought we wouldn't have any opposition. We thought, hey, both parties are supporting this. It's logical. However, now that it's been brought to the floor, unions, SEIU, you start getting the alphabet going, is opposing it because city employees are union members and it will impact them and cause problems for them. So they're coming out and opposing it. So now you think you've got a bill that's logical, makes sense, solves the problem. You can see where the other side turns around and says, well, that impacts my constituents, and so therefore I'm against it. So we're on offense. We've been undefeated, and now we're into the finals, single elimination finals, and we're hoping that the Senate will pass it, and then it will go into play, become a bill. I love that the old songs on TV. I'm just a bill. So waiting for that to make it through the Senate, that will become the law. And so we are kind of in the finals with that one. So yes, we won on offense. It's not trying to solve world peace or end hunger. It's a minor issue, but it's just steps in the right direction to show it can be done.
Yeah.
Let's continue to work from this. And if there's a problem that should be solved, we can solve it if we all kind of get engaged and work on it. But yeah, so we're finally on offense. We're trying to make it happen. We shall see. It does have opposition now, but come later, we're hoping that this will be enacted and we can say we got one. Hey, we got one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got to feel good for you and the team at NAIOP to go on offense and not constantly be on defense.
It's a different concept. It's a different concept.
Absolutely. Eric, my friend, we're just about out of time. Thank you very much for joining me today. I would like to bring you back post the election or maybe just before for some updates. And how can people get a hold of you? And also, why don't you give them a plug not only for Kidder Mathews, but for NAIOP as well?
So why don't I start with NAIOP? Because that I believe is germane to our topic today. Know what's going on. Understand what's going on. You can go to NAIOP SoCal, NAIOP SoCal.org, and look under legislation. And there'll be things that we've posted that you can take a look at that says, hey, what's our position on or what we're aware of. And we try to be fair. We cover the background of it. We cover why it's a good thing, or at least our opinion of why it's a good thing. So go there. If you want to write a check, there's 2 PACs that are engaged with NAIOP SoCal that would more than welcome your money. But the real ask is that you reach out via email or phone call to your local politician. It can be as little as the city council member all the way up to your congressman or your senator. They all count. They all tally everything. So be involved in that. As Craig talked about with where things are going with commercial real estate, Kidder Mathews, we're the largest independent self-owned private real estate commercial services firm along the West Coast. We've got Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Arizona, and it is brokerage. It's also property management and appraisal. If you want to go fight your taxes, I got appraisers that'll help you. If you want to save on your taxes, I got a cost seg guy. If you want to audit your expenses, whether as a tenant or a landlord, my property management there's there to help. I can be reached at Eric, ERIC.Paulsen, PAULSEN @kidder.com, or you're welcome to call me at 949-557-5079. And if you act now, we'll throw it. No. So feel free to reach out to me. I will take your call. I will be more than happy to answer your questions. I will direct you to the right people. Calling me, it does not, or emailing me, it does not bother me. I am more than happy to help you get a better understanding of what's going on, just to make you informed. So Craig, thanks for letting me be on the show and just throw things out there on behalf of both NAIOP and Kidder. It's very much appreciated.
Absolutely, my friend. In full disclosure, Eric and I both worked for the same company at one point in time. Eric is one of our very best in virtually all the asset classes in commercial real estate. He's been on the development side. He's been on the ownership side. He's been on the lending side. He's and he's just a terrific resource. Give him a call. Seriously.
I got some street cred. I got my street cred.
You do, my friend. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Craig. Always great to see you.
Bye. Thank you, our audience. Also, I'd like to thank our good friends at Red Roof Franchising for being our production partner on this special live show. We've got a lot of ground that we did cover. We've got even more to cover. Get involved. You need to know what's going on. I am asking all of our trade associations to please get involved, and especially on the hospitality side, AHOA, AHNLA, CHNLA, CLIA, Latino Hotel Owners Association, BLLA, and Crew Orange County, one of my favorites. Please get involved with us. Eric and I are both members of Crew Orange County. So get involved, find out the correct information, cut through the noise. You can always reach us here at our YouTube channel or our LinkedIn page. Be glad to take any questions there as well. Producer Danny and I will be back soon with season 10 of CLIC Connect. We are in the pre-production stages of that. So thank you all very, very much for joining us today. And, as I'm fond of saying, be kind, share your knowledge, go be amazing.